So welcome everybody, and we would like to welcome Godfrey Grech. Please introduce our fine guest.
Hello, Godfrey. This is Nora here and Alexis. So Godfrey Grech has been a principal investigator in cancer research for the last 14 years at the University of Malta. He's currently leading colorectal cancer research projects aiming to understand the mechanisms of disease and to identify potential strategies for early detection and prevention of disease. He's internationally recognized and published over 40 peer-reviewed papers, edited a book on preventive and predictive genetics, and authored book chapters in colorectal cancer and inflammatory bowel disease. He's a member of the European Society of Pathology and the European Preventive, Predictive, and Personalized Medicine. Quite a tongue twister there.
Quite a nice one there.
That's pretty distinguished, Godfrey. Wonderful.
Thank
you so much.
For this introduction, of course.
Yes, thank you for being here. So today, this episode is all about the gut. It's about the gut. Simple three-letter word. It's been a hot topic for a lot of 2020, 2019. It's a relatively new area of research. Am I right, Godfrey?
That's very true. There's a lot of research going on, and of course, but there are very new things coming up. So today we will be looking into these also new upcoming science, which will help us take care of our gut.
Yeah, so I feel like we're going to have a very interesting and impactful and timely conversation here, because I think that, especially 2020, just as the years go on, it seems like there's more digestive gut health issues out there, and people are suffering with mild to severe symptoms of diseases or just allergic reactions or sensitivities that no doctor seems to really be able to pinpoint, and they just don't know where to go anymore. And I'm one of these people where, even though I'm studying integrative medicine and such, though I am not specialized in gut health or anything, but I have been impacted personally with gut health issues and inflammation. So let's start by, I think a good place to start would be the microbiome. So could you tell us, Godfrey, a little bit about what the microbiome is?
Yes, we as human beings have within our gut number of bacteria that are very important for our health. So we think that bacteria normally are pathogenic, which means that they create illness, but we actually do have a lot of bacteria in our gut which we need. So this is a symbiotic condition in which we need these bacteria, and these bacteria are actually in an environment that we provide. And we should keep providing that environment because they also provide us with nutrients and healthy, what we call metabolites, which means that healthy compounds that originate from our diet. Now, if I had to define it, so I like to provide two terms, which is microbiota, which are actually the type of bacteria that live in our gut, and also the microbiome. Now, the microbiome is a collection of these microbes and their functions related to which genes they have. What do I mean by that? Because we can measure and calculate the quantity and types of bacteria in the gut, and we can list them and give their quantities. But the most important is to look at which bacteria and which functions, therefore, we have available in our gut to provide us with these nutrients.
Yeah, because, like when we're asking the question of what is a healthy gut, that's also a rather hard thing to define, right? Like really, we have so many different like ethnicities and people coming from all over the place eating different types of foods. And perhaps that has a big impact on it too, just how like your genetics, right? As you say, what types of microbiota you have. Am I right? Hopefully I'm using these terms correctly. And how you're able to digest food well, because I believe digestion is one of those markers for having a healthy microbiome. So, and it's just fascinating how you mentioned just the sheer numbers as well. We were talking offline as well about the number of bacteria in the gut relative to the number of human cells in the body, right? Which was, I don't know, repeat what you said, because that was very interesting.
So if you look at the human body, we are made up of 30 trillion human cells, representing around 20,000 genes. Whilst if we look only at the gut microbiota, because we have also microbiota on our skin and our and in other places. But if we look at the gut microbiota, we're talking about more than 100 trillion bacteria. So in quantity, in numbers, they are tenfold more than our own cells. And in genes, in genes, it's even more. It's 100 times more. So you can imagine the metabolic difference there might be between, as you said, different populations that eat differently. Therefore, they have different microbiota in their gut.
Yeah, it's crazy just what a difference in number that is.
I can't even conceive of those numbers.
Yeah, and like when we are talking about what a healthy gut is, it's more so the diversity, isn't it? The diversity, regardless of what kind of strains compose that diversity, it's more so having enough variety of these bacteria, right?
So the diversity is extremely important. So we normally measure diversity and abundance, but the diversity, so a healthy gut is a gut which have a good diversity of microbiota, right? Which can change, and there is specific balances that are need to be kept, and that is highly affected by the diet that we eat, which of course provide us with an opportunity, if we have any misbalance of these microbiota, to readjust before disease occurs, because this balance, which we call dysbiosis, is also related to multiple diseases. Now, if you think about the digestion system, and I'm not going into details, a lot of details there, but of course,
so much information.
Yeah, because it's always relevant, and it's important to put things into perspective. So the first thing, which is extremely important, is food. The second thing is that you actually chew well your food, because that's where digestion starts, in your mouth, which eventually goes into your stomach. You need the acid to actually start digesting proteins, and there are various biochemical pathways which I will not go into detail, although we will provide blogs as well, and we'll link to all these videos. And eventually it goes to the small intestine, where most of the digestion is happening, which digestion and absorption. So you also need to have a retention time, so that all this is digested is also absorbed. You need also to, then it moves to the large intestines, in which you absorb mainly most of the water, although there are circumstances which this doesn't happen, and therefore that's also an issue with abdominal discomforts. But then in the large intestine is where the main amount of bacteria are. So the numbers there, we're talking about trillions, so it's really high. And that's because where fermentation occurs. We need the bacteria ferment carbohydrates mainly, to very important metabolites that we need. So if I had to actually summarize this into the three key functions of microbiota, the first one is to maintain the gut lining, because you know the gut lining, where the food is coming, then you of course have your tissues. That's the first barrier. You don't want food to move through that barrier. So you need to actually maintain that gut lining. The second one is actually production of metabolites that we actually need. So using compounds that we don't digest, but the bacteria will ferment for us and give us these metabolites that are extremely important, including vitamins. Yeah. And the third one is education of our immune system. The only place where we have a way to educate our immune cells is where we have a very close environment. There is a concentration of abnormal bacteria that we need to fight, but they are not in the system yet, so they are really in close proximity. And this is how we need to educate the immune, because that presents us with a way of having the immune cells close to our environment.
So then basically you're saying that the microbiome plays a big role in immunity. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. So what are some of the ways, could you sum that up for us, Godfrey, please? How does the healthy microbiome contributes to the health of humans? How does it prevent disease exactly? Like, what are some of the ways that it expresses itself?
So first of all, it's defense. Yeah. So a barrier. It provides a barrier because the metabolites that these bacteria produce from carbohydrates, for instance, if they ferment carbohydrates, they produce what are called short chain fatty acids.
Right.
Now, these short chain fatty acids, as an example, there are three. So one of them is butyrate, which is extremely important, is the energy source of bacteria themselves, but also provides 70% of the energy source of the epithelial cells, which are the lining of the gut. Okay, so that's very important. So they provide energy, yeah, to the lining, and that it is a barrier. If this barrier is somewhat disrupted, then the cells which are normally tied together, they will start opening up, and therefore things can come through.
The leaky gut syndrome you're leading up to?
That's right, that's the leaky gut. So that's the first thing that is extremely important, which is the barrier to the environment. Yeah,
because we got all these different layers to get through, you know.
I'm sure not many people, you know, in the general public, general population knows this stuff, right? So this is why we are talking about it today. This is why it's so crucial, because it really enhances our immunity, or, you know, degrades it if you're not taking care of that.
Yes, so that's the second one. So immunity, you know, so it's the only way where we have the immune cells. By the way, more than 70% of our immune cells are in our gut. Okay.
Wow.
So they are there and educating themselves. So that is a very good position, because there is the environment very close to the immune cells. We have actually specialized immune cells that probe the lumen, which is the hollow section of the gut where the digesta is, the food, the digested food is, to actually probe these harmful bacteria and elicit a very low chronic inflammatory response. Okay, that's healthy, because you need that to educate the immune cells to start producing specific antibodies. So that when we need that antibody, they will remember that particular production.
Okay. Now also, there is something that I know about these microbiotas stealing nutrients from disease-causing pathogens. Maybe could you explain that a little bit? How do they steal nutrients from them and dislodge them from the wall of the intestines?
So I started with saying that's very important. The diversity is very important, but also the abundance. Now, the abundance will, if there's a change in the abundance, there's this shift in the microbiota. But if we keep that balance, yeah, then we have sort of the pathogenic, the bad bacteria, yeah, the bad bacteria would not have enough nutrients because we have enough good bacteria. Yeah,
right.
So they are the first to take the nutrients, they are the first to produce and metabolize the things, they are the first to produce the metabolites that are needed by the colonic cells as well. So there is a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, so sometimes it's not even like dysbiosis can, I guess, be caused by a lack of diversity of good bacteria, or it could just be caused by an overabundance of bad bacteria. But maybe you have all the diversity that you need. It's just that the bad bacteria is overwhelming for whatever reason.
Yeah, so yeah, there are studies in which there are differences in also diets. So there are some diets that are restrictive diets. So we have to pay attention from these restrictive diets. The healthy gut is a sort of all-inclusive diet, moderate and interchangeably. If one would eat red meats, for 5 consecutive days, we do see scientifically a shift in bacteria, and that would result in a pro-inflammatory response. And we see the same shift. So you see, so doing a 5 consecutive red meat meals, yeah, that's what's happening. But this is the same shift that we see in inflammatory bowel disease.
So there was this key thing that you had told us before as well, is that within a certain number of days, about 5, I believe, you were able to change the composition almost of the microbiota?
Yeah. In this case,
that adapts to what foods you're eating regularly over the course of around 5 days?
It's more the abundance, yeah. Although you might not change the diversity at first, so you change the abundance, the ratio between the 2 main ones. Once you do that, then you start changing also the abundance of other ones. So the diversity might still be there, but the abundances now are all over the place.
With a certain diet, regular diet, you're giving those specific nutrients which are fueling those specific microbiota.
Exactly.
Now, what comes to mind here for me, Godfrey, is that it seems like a controversy in my mind, is that in the past, people were not living under such hygienic kind of environments or circumstance. And, we took in much more harmful bacteria and perhaps other pathogens with our food and everything. There was no pesticides or herbicides or anything like that today is like commonplace. So what can you tell about that? Tell us about that. Would that eating all those...
My thinking, if I may interject, is that we're talking about now the quality of the food itself. So same type of food, whether it's red meat or a broccoli or a potato, but now the chemical composition of the food is different in that same food today than it was tens of hundreds of years ago, right? So how does this impact, basically? Is that your question?
Yes, exactly. If you take in all these harmful potentially disease-causing fungi and bacteria and so on, would that enhance or overpower your microbiota, your immune system?
Okay, so if we're talking about the any harmful bacteria which comes in with our food, don't forget that we still is outside. So from the mouth to the other end, it's still outside.
Yeah,
you know?
we're
It's
like a
tube.
donut.
It's a continuous tube, yeah?
Right.
We're like a donut.
Yeah, well,
The hole on the inside is still on the outside.
yeah, so if I start, yeah,
Right.
so you know, it's a
I've
tube.
never heard that before.
No?
Okay, I go with the flow. Okay.
But it's the reality. As long as the gut lining is tight, it would result in educating the immune system. On the other hand, if we're talking about the composition of food because we changed how we process food or how we put food together, or that's a different question, or maybe because we use more pesticides, you mentioned before as well, that's a bit of a more different question, because these chemicals definitely are doing effects, and some of them also toxic effects on our cells.
Right, and of course, yeah, like we don't even know exactly what chemicals do what inside our body, yet we're almost helpless against them. And so we have to find a way to work with this. Mm-hmm. So then when people ask, you know, well, then what do I do? What is it that I could do that I can control? Because really that's all you have in your hands now. It's what we can control, and we can control that through our environment. We can control that through our thoughts, and we can control that through our food that we eat, what we take in, right? And so, how is it, like people are saying when the first thing hits their mind is, okay, probiotics. Probiotics, is that something I need? And then they'll go to the store, but they won't know what to look for, and so they ask the person there who specializes, right? Let's just say in these things, and
we'll have some knowledge.
And they still, but even doctors these days, I find, won't be able to tell you most of the time, particularly what strains you need. And of course, that's one part because we can't look inside your personal microbiome and pick out exactly what you're missing or what you need.
Would be nice.
I mean, you in the projects that you're working on, and we'd love to hear about those projects too. We can look into the genetics and look into a little more of the specifics. So we need some more, we also need some practical advice on what we can do. So how about we start with, if you could clarify for us this probiotic versus this lesser known prebiotic idea that everyone just seems so confused about.
The probiotic, living microorganisms that can be administered in adequate amounts in which we as a host will benefit from. Okay, so that's the definition of a probiotic, and this comes in different ways. It can be yogurt. I mean, yogurt is one of these probiotics that one could eat, you know, and it's a good habit to have yogurt daily because it's a nice probiotic, as long as there is not too much sugar in it, because then it's another problem. So we have to pay attention to these kind of things. Then prebiotic is a substance which is also a food in which we feed the microbiota. It's not something that we need because most of them, like the main one is fiber. Yeah, so fiber we cannot digest, so we cannot eat out of fiber, although it is a very important part of the digestive system. But eventually that fiber would be the source of nutrients of these beneficial bacteria, which is the microbiota, which eventually they will ferment and produce for us metabolites that we need. Okay? So the probiotic is the living organism. The prebiotic is something that we feed these probiotics to actually maintain. So the ideal situation is that you have the gut is in a healthy balance, and at that particular healthy balance, one would pay attention to the diet, making sure that you have 30 different types of plant-based diets every week, different types of plant-based diet. Yeah, one would not eat too much red meat in consecutive sequence, as I said before. you know?
And eat the right kind of meat.
Yeah.
Eat the right kind
Again,
of
we're
food.
talking, again, the food, we have
The
to know
quality.
that the quality is there.
Exactly, exactly.
You pay much more for organic versions of meat, by the way, so that sometimes hinders people's
Yeah, so then in
health efforts.
organic, you were reducing then the toxins that you can bring in with due to farming. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
also.
And I definitely think, like, I know, see, I don't like talking about diets either. I much rather think about food in terms of the nutrients that each food provides and in what context. What is it that I'm doing in this point of the day? Where is my health at right now? What do I need?
Yeah, we cannot eat
that
mindlessly,
sense.
in other words. I mean, this is not only sustenance for our physical body, but our benefits our entire being.
Yeah, and again, as you mentioned, that diversity. You want a diverse microbiome, you should probably, maybe it's a good idea to eat diverse foods, right? And of course, if you have an allergy because of some genetic, thing, or just something doesn't sit well with you. I mean, there could be many different causes for why something doesn't sit well with you.
Yeah, but when it comes to testing, so you mentioned two very important things here.
Yeah.
First of all, is if somebody is intolerant to something, yeah, which is mainly could be driven by the human genetics. Yeah, so that's one thing. And that particular intolerance can be tested. It is something which is now commonly done in the clinical practice. So one would know if one would be intolerant to gluten or other particular dietary factors. Yeah,
Okay.
We can talk for a long time about lactose intolerance, which is also an issue of genetics, because we do switch off the lactase enzyme as adults because we should not drink milk. But of course, this
only as
changed over the
babies.
time.
Right?
So this
Only as
changed over
babies.
the time. So today we have people that are intolerant, but others that are tolerant and fully tolerant to milk. Knowing that is very important. Sort of a small hint there, I mean, if you have a glucose meter, and you take a glucose test and you do an insult, yeah, you do a challenge. I know that you like doing, but do a challenge test, yeah, in which you drink milk. Yeah? Then in an hour's time, you check your glucose level again. If you find an increase in glucose because milk has lactose, and that is should be digested to glucose and galactose. So if you have an increase in glucose, then your lactase gene is working. So you're not lactose intolerant. So these are very simple hints that one can do even at home, So these are interesting to do to see if you are lactose intolerant or not. So that's one thing. So that's about human genetics. And then you have the genetics of the microbiota. And that's why I said we here in our projects, scientifically, today we can read the types, the quantity, but also the genes of the bacteria, meaning that I would know, because you would have, you have trillions of these bacteria, and it's very difficult to, if you see all these changes, to see if is this a functional change, or this is just a sort of stability of our microbiota, because today I ate diet 1, tomorrow I ate something a little bit different,
Yeah.
But is it a functional change? And therefore we can read all the genes of the bacteria and say, at this moment in time, the bacteria that we have, the metabolism is right. So one of our projects is actually doing that today. So we read all the genes that are present. We do that in a fecal sample that is very representative. And we test all the genes of these microbiota. And we would say the discrepancies in the main ones, but also the functional difference of the different diversity between individuals.
Right.
There are differences for sure, but is this difference a functional difference, or is just because I'm eating different things, or maybe I'm eating it from my country and you're eating it from your country, which might differ as well.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely plays into it, right? And yeah, what we said, that what you eat, what you take in, is going to amplify some strains and just fuel the growth of those versus over others. So in that way, we are very adaptive.
The WHO actually came out with well, an opinion on the fiber intake. So they are saying that doubling our fiber intake reduces the risk of death from all causes by 30%. Would you have something to say about that?
Yeah.
Fiber
what do you find about fiber?
I mean, fiber is extremely important for gut health, and gut health is important for most diseases. Okay, let's start with that statement, which is extremely important. So when I said that most beneficial bacteria would require their actually prebiotic, their actual food, I actually was referring to fiber. And the fiber is a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates, there are various types, but the most important here are the plant-based carbohydrates, because from animals we don't get carbohydrates except from glycogen and lactose in milk. But plant-based polysaccharides are the most important for these beneficial bacteria. Now, if we don't have these beneficial bacteria and we don't produce the metabolites that are important for our body, then definitely diseases will start. Diseases ranging from inflammatory diseases, metabolic syndromes, which would result in diabetes and obesity, okay? Colorectal cancer, and this is where I'm working on, so the effect of diet on the progression and initiation of colorectal cancer, and we see differences there as well. And also mental health, okay? So today there's also the gut-brain axis, which is extremely important, and we know that 90% of the serotonin, which is one of the neurotransmitters, but other neurotransmitters are produced by the gut. If we don't take care to input fiber, to have fiber, then our gut bacteria are going to change into a pro-inflammatory. Once we are pro-inflammatory, then gut lining integrity is lost, then you have gut is not working properly, then you have all these issues that will come out one after the other.
The big cascade.
Now, also my question would be to you, why not just taking these fibers from food? Why there are so much emphasis put on prebiotic, pre-made prebiotics?
Well,
what would be the difference for a human body?
No, the emphasis is put on probiotics. But as Godfrey mentioned before, you mentioned that a lot of the times we have the seeds, right? The probiotics, they are there existing. But if we are not feeding them with prebiotics, the garden is not going to grow, right? And so perhaps just people with these symptoms, these gut issues, are not taking in sufficient amount of nutrients, prebiotics, for the probiotics. And therefore, they're not allowing their strains to flourish, right? So I guess the question is, if we were sure to intake the correct dosage of prebiotics, whether through food or in a supplement, could we greatly improve our gut health?
The answer is a big yes. So one has to actually have a healthy diet for a healthy gut. This is where you have to start. Everyone has to start with that. The issue of having probiotic is also important to help the diet, but without the prebiotics, the probiotics are, if there is a disbalance, Now the bad bacteria will help themselves to accumulate more, so the abundance will increase and increase. And although you take a small amount of probiotic, that doesn't mean that those living organisms will thrive in this imbalanced state. So probiotics, if there is an imbalance, then you have to put also prebiotics or change diet to provide the prebiotics for these living organisms that are beneficial.
Yeah.
So the idea here is prevention. Let's try and prevent.
Right.
And we have hints, so there are hints to try and prevent these things. So take 30 different, minimum of 30 different plant-based diets, whatever they are, but plant-based every week. I'm not saying eat only veg, but at least this diversity of diets.
Yeah, sometimes the diet has to be cyclic, so don't latch on to one construct of a way of eating, but perhaps cycle through, change up your foods, right? Maybe you need that different nutrient to allow those other microbiota to flourish, right? Those strains.
Absolutely.
And also maybe eating, according to the season. Right.
Well, that's true. We learn from Ayurveda, right? An Indian philosophy of living healthily. But anyway, I also really want to bring up this point because me having suffered with some sort of colitis and being lactose intolerant, and for a long time not even knowing what was wrong with me. The problem I ran into was, okay, fine, then I need to take in more prebiotics, but vegetables make me feel sick when I eat them because my gut can't handle the vegetables.
Yes, so once there is a condition, what do you do?
So then what do you do?
So it's important in which context here, because if you have a disbalance because of a condition, and then you have to bring it back, there is, during the period when sort of the time period in which you have this disbalance, then taking vegetables might be discomfort. You have discomfort, but you need that so that you flip the balance back. So you have a rebalancing of. So in that case, there is a time period where you might feel this sort of discomfort. But that's because you're still trying to put together your microbiota back to normal.
Right.
Generally, that will sort of, you go through a specific days and then it will be fine. Of course, if it's sustained, there's something wrong. I'm not saying that this.
Right.
In cases of specific diseases, like diverticular disease, for instance, there is specific diets and also related to fiber intake, because fiber is not ideal if you have a flare-up during diverticular disease.
Right.
So if we then, so one of the important issues here is that we have to look at diet then and intake of all these constituents of the diet, depending on the disease and the disease state, So we cannot really generalize that you should always have fiber, because there are some diseases in which you have specific times which you shouldn't have fiber. And we've actually put this into a nice blog. So any listeners that have specific diseases and want to look at how this relates to that particular disease, there we will put together, who have already blogs. But if there are any other comments to the video with specific diseases or other diseases that we don't have information on, we'll definitely put information on.
Yeah, that's very helpful for people.
We'll have links down below, and again, there's so much to speak of on this topic. We could literally speak about it forever. but we'll probably have you back on, Godfrey,
Exactly.
anyway.
That'd be awesome.
So a big thank you. A big thank you for spending time discussing this topic with us. And where can we best find you, Godfrey? If anybody is looking to learn more about the projects you're involved in, or just yourself and your studies, where can we find you?
Okay, so first of all, within the links, I will provide information in terms of articles. Within the articles, one can also subscribe to more information. So that's one thing there where I can be found, also to your listeners. And I am also creating an educational YouTube channel, which is actually
it is great. Yes,
so we discuss all these issues, and of course I will. That's very easy to find. It's my name, so you just type Godfrey Grech and YouTube and
GRECH.
So
yep, we'll have it down.
we'll somehow write it in the description of this. Right, in the description of this video. So yeah, so there are different ways how to reach me. If you Google me, you'll find me. You'll find my projects, ongoing projects. I'm in general very transparent, and I want to reach out to other people, because my mission now is not to study science and publish. My current mission is to reach out individuals and try to prevent disease.
So
and that's so beautiful.
So
a lot of
admirable,
people are doing this.
You're such a humble person. This is why we like you so much. And this is our aim. This is Vitalsphere's aim as well, to help individuals to come to a deeper understanding of their own being through yoga, meditation, healthy diet,
fitness, lifestyle, anything, not just tree hugging, but also embracing the chemical world. Because we gotta understand the context of the world in which we live, and we gotta face the realities, but we can approach that through the most holistic way possible.
Exactly. So with that, we thank you again, and see you back very soon.
I will be happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Godfrey. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.